All right, good afternoon. Anyone here?
Good
If anyone
afternoon.
is,
Good afternoon. I can hear you.
yeah,
Good
so
afternoon.
you gave me a different email, you're here with another email.
No, I gave you. Okay, I gave you my email now, my work email.
Right,
Or
anyways,
okay, maybe it's the way I joined.
you joined with info. This is info.
Have you joined?
All right, that's not an issue.
Okay, yes,
Good
I joined with
afternoon.
info.
Do we have Chine? Yeah, Abi, what's his name? Sorry. Um,
Che Mary, have you
yeah,
joined? Okay,
is
please, can
it?
you send me the link? Let me send it
I
to
can't
him.
send you any link.
He can't open his
I
mail.
already sent an invite to that email you gave me. Please, I can't share you link again.
Okay, open the email. Okay, don't worry.
Please, when he's here, confirm he's here so we can start.
Sorry, give me a minute. He wants to join. He's having issues joining. See, please, you can start. We'll both use this one since we're here. Yes. Is that David?
All right, so that's fine. That's fine. So this is 3:04. So I also want to be very time conscious because all right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aziz. You can call me David, or you can also call me Palito, any one of the two. So I have here with me my colleague. I have Ayo and I have Anu. So they are going to do their introduction by themselves, right? So I must have met with I have met with Bolawo, right? I know person Bolawo in person. So for the other, hello, are we together?
All right.
I might
Yes, we
still
are.
not know how to pronounce your name for now because I haven't kept your name yet on my head. Chinemere. So it is okay. So which other name is easier for us to like, do you have any other name that is
You can call me Mother.
Modashiro?
Mother as in mother. Mother.
Muda. All right. All right.
Like mother. Yes. It'll be easier to
Modal,
pronounce.
like a pop-up.
Like what?
A pop-up.
Modal,
Like
like a
just
pop-up.
Mother. Mother.
David, just
Oh,
call him
mother.
Chi.
All right.
Yeah,
Mother.
Chi
So,
is
all
okay.
right. So I think Chi is okay. I will just call you Chi.
Mother.
So for the time being, you just help us manage the Chi. So it's actually nice to be here.
Oh
It's
wow.
actually nice to meet you, and we hope for a smooth curve in this particular journey. So I already like got a little brief about your experience, where you're coming from, and I think that would really help. So me as a person, I also have come from um app development down to web development until this day that I currently build for ERP software. So likewise, my colleague. So I think I will just leave the table for them to introduce themselves so that we can move on the next agenda and then the next agenda. Then before we start the class. All right. So the floor is for you, Mr. Anu, Mr. Ayo. So you can go ahead and introduce
Okay,
yourself.
good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Elijah Bill, but you can always call me anyone. You can either call me Elijah or you call me Ayo.
Oh, good
Anyone that
afternoon.
Good afternoon.
suits you. Yeah, afternoon. So yes, I'm aware of Bolan, as my colleague already said. I'm aware of Bolan, and uh, I'm getting to get familiar with the new guy, you, which Chi, yeah, you Chi. So
Yeah.
I just hope that
Yeah.
I would advise before we go into this thing, I would advise that we just pay attention very well and we try and grab as much as possible that will be said on the training so that we don't get to waste each other's time. Do you get? So that's all for now.
Yes.
All right. Anu, are you on the call? So we still have Mr. Anu here on the call. So I'm not sure. Has he joined?
I'm not sure you joined yet, but probably still trying to join.
All right. So when he actually joins, he's going to do the formality. All right. So before we start for the course, we need to also note the rules for the entire courses, so that I feel like where there are no rules, there are no sins, or there are no cause for alarm, so that we also navigate this journey together in a strictly way, and then we achieve each other's goal. The goal for this particular training is for you to be able to program using AL language, right? And for you to be able to navigate yourself throughout Navision and on-prem, right? So that's the objective for this particular course. So we want to also put the rule out there so that you can also adhere to the rules, and then we both don't have issues. All right, so the number one rules for this course is that I wouldn't want this course or this training to be something like a familiarity. Yes, we might have known each other, yeah, in person, but doing this course, I do not want anything that has to do with familiarity. Let's take the course for the course, and then after the course we might come back being friends. But during this course, I want you to look at it like you're actually meeting with a stranger, somebody you do not know. Because if you put that eyes of is my bro or something, you might not achieve what you want to achieve. So that's like the number one standing rule. Yeah, you address the tutor as the tutor, and let that relationship be that way during this course. After the course, in person, you can have your personal relationship. I'm audible, right?
Okay. All right. Yeah. Noted.
Okay. All right. So, Ayo, is there any other thing we needed to add so that we had it now before we start with the course?
Okay. Yeah. So yes. In the course of the training, if there be any reason for question, let it be at the end of the whole thing, so you don't get to like you don't let it like break the communication, because if you do, regardless of what you do, it's still going to be 45 minutes. You get. So, but then let's just make sure that we get the context of the training first. Then, when if any questions arise, then we can always treat that at the end of the class. I hope
Or
I'm
or
clear.
or, or they can put a comment down. So since
Oh
three of
yes,
us
of
are not
course.
doing the talking at a time, other persons can
Yes, yes.
respond to you on the chat box.
But then, David, if we allow that, there will be distraction.
Okay.
Do you
Okay.
understand?
Yeah, I think I get that.
Because
So they can also take note
if
of
you are
their
teaching that,
questions.
exactly, so that it just be all focused on the lecture. Then when we're done, then we can now start attending. Probably another person can now attend to the questions, not the person that even actually go through the lecture. You get?
Okay. That works
All
fine.
right.
That works fine.
All right.
All right. So I'm going to be sharing my screen. Earlier this morning, if my brain still serves me well, I shared the content for the module 1, what we are actually going to be taking through the module 1. And so I'll be sharing my screen and would walk through that process. So I would also like that you also have this open on your tab so that we can follow along. All right. So the training is not just going to touch the history of Microsoft. We are not touching all of that. You will do all of that reading. But whatever you would need to navigate this journey as a beginner down to being an advanced, that is what we are actually providing for you. So you can also confirm you can see my screen. All right. Please, can you confirm you can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right. Thanks. All right, so we'll start with module 1, which is always the very first steps in any course, right? So it's always good for us to know the introduction of the language, right? So you might have been hearing of AL, and I think Bolawon has started one or two customization using AL, and I think I heard that Chi also is also building one or two reports using AL. So, but let's just go into um what it does. And you can also just pay attentive because I do not want to assume that you know everything. So just allow me start from scratch, grab what you need to grab, hold the information you need to hold, and then we move on from there. All right. So AL language is application language, right? So this language is being introduced by Microsoft, to enhance business customization. That's when we're talking about Business Central, right? So with AL, what can we do with AL? We can actually automate business processes. Yes. So if we look at other ERP modules or ERP softwares, they offer some of these features that Microsoft Business Central offers, but they did not offer the aspect of us being able to trick the base application. If I say base application, these are the follow come features that comes with Business Central application, but they didn't give most of them that features, and with that, it didn't make those software scalable. It didn't make those software like compete alongside with Microsoft Business Central. So with this ability, we are able to manipulate data. We are able to create a custom API pages for interfaces for external API. We are also able to consume APIs. When I mean API, application programming interface. So if you are familiar with developing or you have come from the route of being a computer science person, you should at least know what an API is. So it's just an interface whereby one can interact based on what the API offers. All right. So based on what the API actually offers, so you are able to retrieve data, post data, delete data, modify data, manipulating data in general, right? So I would highlight on this particular phase. So just like other programming language, AL also has a way at which it constructs each of the events or instruction. And there are some important section when you start developing in AL that are very significant for you to understand. So you can see that we have what we call event triggers. So if we look at CRUD operation, so let me just bring out a notepad. Um, Please, are your confirm Anu is already here?
Still waiting. I've admitted him, but it's just rolling on my end here.
Okay, that could be network. All right,
That could be my
so
network or his network.
yeah, thank you. So when we look at the CRUD operation, so under the CRUD operation, we have create, read, update, and delete. Business Central also allocates events that are responsible for this four operation. When I want to, when I say CRUD, when I say create, there's an event that is responsible for this in Business Central. There is an operation for read, there's an operation for update, and there's an operation for delete. So if you can read towards this section, you would see that I have events like on insert, on modify, on delete, and there's also one called on rename. So I might have omitted that. So let me just put a relationship between on insert. On insert is at the point of creation when a document is about to be created on insert. So that is create. On modify, when a document so this doesn't have to do with read actually. On modify is more like you're renaming or you are editing a specific data on the database. Then we have the on delete. So for the output of the data we are going to get there, I'm going to show you um methods to use to retrieve data from the database, right? So one other thing I want you to know is that um, AL is more like a procedural language. What do I mean? Even when it is being called an object-oriented programming language, so there's a sequence at which each operation is being processed. So let me navigate to, so this is what I mean. Let's say this is the beginning of my code, right? So if my code is beginning from here, the way AL reads each individual code is that it starts its operation from the very first line and then it iterates to the second. That means so this is why I called it a procedural language, because it takes it step by step before while compiling. All right. So now this is like an introduction to AL. So inside AL, there's always, hello? Is anybody talking to me?
Yeah, I'm here. Nobody's talking to him.
Okay. You can also mute so that in case somebody is
Oh,
talking
okay.
beside you, it
Sorry.
doesn't disrupt us. All right. So um, it's also very important that in every programming language, um, data, there should be data type. There should be allocation for data types, because when you start developing an application, there should be a way for you to classify some things as an integer, classify some things as a string, classify some record as an array, stuffs like that. So AL also provides that flexibility. So, but before we now start writing, introducing ourselves to different variables or data types that are present in the AL language, there's a prerequisite for us to actually set up our environment. So, the very first thing we now do is that, so how do we get to develop in using AL language? So the prerequisites are actually very little, so very minimum. I'm going to be walking you through the process based on the cloud process. So if you are to install or start building an application using AL, so you need to download what is called Visual Studio Code, right? With just Visual Studio Code, you are able to actually push in extensions to Business Central tenants. So I'm going to be using the word tenant interchangeably because I wouldn't just want to call it on Cloud Business Central. You're actually working with a tenant. If you know what a tenant means, a tenant is just more like an ID, right? So I could have different environments with different tenant ID. So tenant ID is just like, look at it like an identification for a particular database. Does that work fine? You can unmute, please. Bolawan,
Yeah,
please, you
that's
can
fine.
unmute.
That's
Okay,
fine.
so I can use this interchangeably, or my colleague might use it as a database. I might use it as a tenant. It can go interwovenly. So, but the idea is just when I talk about that, you already know that I'm actually referring to a tenant or I'm referring to a database, right? So the first thing you want to do is you want to download or install your Visual Studio Code. So I don't want to assume. Do we have this installed on our system?
Yes, we do.
All right. So I'm also going to navigate to my Visual Studio, and I'm going to navigate to so I'm going to my extensions, you know. So let's do it this way. All right. After you must have installed the AL extension, which is very compulsory because that's like the compiler for AL language. So this is it, AL extension for Microsoft Business Central. This is very, very important because this is responsible for the compilation of AL application. Also, it's also advised to install this A to Z AL development tools because it has almost all the development kits needed for AL development. So you can also scroll down to see the list of other um, application it's going to be installing, right? So I'm assuming that this phase has been done perfectly, right? So the next thing to do is that we need to introduce or explain. So let me just open a blank file. All right, so it is moreover, let's just start with a new file. So this means that please confirm you're still together.
Yeah, we are together. We are together. I'm following.
All right, all right. So this means that after I must have installed those particular extensions that we have made mention of. So the next thing is for me to want to create a project. So for me to create a project, there are different ways I can go doing that. I can either press Ctrl Shift P on my keyboard and click on AL Go, or I can also click on run. No, no, sorry, hold on. There's an action button I can use also from here, because I don't really use it that much.
View.
Is someone saying something?
Yeah, I said it's under view. Command
It's under
what's it
view.
called? Command
Okay,
palette.
okay, command.
Yeah.
Sorry about my thanks, Anu. So I can also use this command palette. When I use this, I also want to just click on AL Go. So when I do this, what it does is that the compiler automatically, let me do that again. So it automatically creates a folder for me. As you can see, AL is usually installed on my document folder. I can also change this location if I want to. If I do not want it to be on AL or document folder location, I can also change the location entirely. If I want it to be on my desktop, I can change all of this entirely. So the only advantage this does is just enable our work to be faster because it already has a predefined map location whereby it stores all the data, right? So if you can see, you would see I have AL project one. So this is where I now say, okay, I want to give my project a specific name. Let's say it is called training section one, right? As my project name. Then I can either, you can also see, please choose a path to a new empty folder. Press enter or escape. I can press enter to confirm, escape to cancel. So I want to press enter. Now, the next thing it does is that because Business Central actually works with different waves or different versions. So as you know, um, um, we Business Central usually push out updates on the environment so that it can also still enhance the already made features. And in case they have put in some other newer features, this is why they put on their releases like that. So I always recommend that at least not use this the particular recent release. You can use a release before the newest release. I most likely will go for 13 first, just because I might still be having some issues with the 14.0. So I advise that at least use a level before the latest release. So I'm going to go on with Business Central 24 release wave 1. Or I can also go for 12 because I have used all of these versions very well and I know they work very fine. So we are going to be using 13 for this demonstration. So what actually happens after I select the particular um version of Business Central? What actually happens? You can see that Business Central or Visual Studio automatically set up some files by default on my environment, and I can also see that a pop-up has come up to asking me what environment do I want to actually choose. So I can skip this for now. So let's see. So it's asking me if it's on-prem or SaaS, right? So for this demonstration, I'm going to choose SaaS. And the most important thing about today's tutorial is just for you to have that ground knowledge. Yes, you might have been building already using AL, but do you understand actually how the fundamental works so that it also helps you in debugging when you have issues? You already know where actually to go into to fix your errors, right? So you will notice we have AL package file, we have snapshots, we also have launch.json, app.json, and we also have a sample project called Hello World, right? So let's start by explaining from the top down there, right? So we have .al packages. What files are expected to be in the .al packages? As you can already tell, AL packages. So these are like the system based files. These are um already made modules that are currently present in the environment you are about to customize for. So for every newer environment that has no customization, all the standard files that already exist on that environment would be actually downloaded for your use. Because if these files are not actually downloaded, there will be no way for you to reference a particular record. Let's say, for instance, I want to extend customer list, and then I want to add some new functionalities to customer list, that ability to reference would not be there again because I do not have access to the already made features that are currently on the system, because that is what I want to build on top. So if I'm talking very fast, do let me know. If you are actually following me, also do let me know. Let me know that we are actually communicating and it's not a one line communication.
We're
We're
communicating. You're doing
communicating.
fine.
All right. So that's the importance for this file. This snapshot, right? I've used these features once or twice. The snapshot is just more like when you're working with there's also um there's also something called workspace, right? When you're working with workspace, this has to do with dependencies and stuff like that. So we'd actually look at this one when we start working with those kind of project, because when I explain now, it won't do anything for now. But when you start seeing it in real life or real sense, you start to understand why I said me explaining it now will not make much of sense, right? So for this, for the VS Code, now this is the operational file for VS Code. We have launch.json. So launch.json, as launch could you could have already tell from a launch.json. So the launch.json is just a way to tell Visual Studio on where actually is our server located, any instruction that has to do with from Visual Studio down to the tenant or the database. So as you can also see that the information we are having here is we have the name. So I could change this to whatever. If I say this is Palito City environment, right? I can change this. I can use whatever name I need, right? So the most important part here is you can see the request part here. The request part is saying launch, right? And the document type here is saying AL. So when you see the environment type, we have two different type of environments. It could be sandbox, or so other shortcuts, let me control Z. Other shortcut I can also use to have an idea of what value is a specific property has. You can see when I erase this totally, I can press on my keyboard Control Shift Control Space, sorry, Control Space. Then I can see that I have three options. It can either be on-prem, it can either be a production environment type or a sandbox environment type. So while we are doing customization, we are doing this testing, we make use of the sandbox environment, right? So we make use of the tenant sandbox environment for this demonstration, right? So the environment name now, you might also think that when you click on control space, the system should suggest name for you. That would be wrong, because environment name is should be predefined. Is cannot be predefined. Is something that is currently present on the tenant you are currently using. So I also navigate to a specific environment, and let's see. Ah, do I have the environment? Nothing. I don't. Okay. What can I use this? All right. So this is a specific tenant, right? And if I check my environment here, I'm currently on production environments, right? So I can also see that I have different subsidiary on this environment. So what we are actually concerned about is I want to go to the admin center to see how many tenants ID we have. So, right? So I see that we have 3 environments. One is the production, the second one is called Palito City, the third one is called Sandbox. So these are the environment name needed for me to provide so that Visual Studio knows that, okay, I want to connect to a specific server, but I want to connect to the tenant or the environment name Palito City. So that's just like an instruction for the launch.json, because at the end of the day, VS sorry, VS Code um VS Code launches that environment on the browser, right? So because I already know my environment name is, so I can now say my environment name is Palito City. Now we have the startup object ID. So when the system launch this particular environment name, what page should be the first page that it loads up first? So if you can see startup object 22, 22 is the ID for 22 is customer list. So I'm saying when you launch, just first of all open my customer list. That is the first thing I want to see. So you can always edit this to, let's say I'm currently working on purchase requisition, and my purchase requisition ID is 5100. I can change this to 5100 so that the first page it launch is my purchase requisition, so I don't have to start using the global search to search for my purchase requisition while I'm still working on it. So that is that for that. So you can already see that we have a startup object type. So this also can tell that if I press Control space, you see that we have actual 4 different startup object type. We can either start the first thing we want to see is a query or a report or a table. So we can do that respectively. All right. So the other properties, you can actually learn them on your own, because if we start to go there one after the other, it will take time. So one other important one that we use is, and mind you, I can always use they call it IntelliSense. When I use control space, it's called IntelliSense, right? So it can give me other suggestions of things that I could also still use. So there's this operation we use, which is let me see. So we can also, instead of us just passing this directly, we can also pass the tenant ID. So that means on my environment, I can just say, let me see Palito City first. Let me see. So this is the tenant ID for Palito City. So I can copy this. Oh shit. So I can copy all of this, right? Then I can go back to my VS Code and paste it there. So this way, even if I have made an error here, so it already knows that this is the tenant ID I need to launch the web browser on, right? So there's another one we also use. It's called what is it called?
Schema update.
Yeah, schema updates. Right? Schema updates. We have 3. We have force synchronization, recreate, synchronize. I will explain this now, but we might not understand it now, but we'll still talk about this later. So I will just leave this to a later thing for me to explain. So basically, on a summary, launch.json, what it does is it helps the browser to know how to actually load the environment, right? So then we now have another one called app.json. So what does this app.json does? So you can already tell from the name. I mean, most of the time, there's already an hint to what some certain things are. So whatever things that has to do with the app you are currently building on, so this is where the app.json comes in play, right? So you can see that because we named our project name training section 1, you see that automatically it gave this a training section 1 as a name. So we can also change this to, let's say, right? So we can also copy this, right? So for the publisher, who's the publisher? Because you currently work for Zetamind, so the publisher would be the company name. It's not compulsory, but that makes a sense to like an application point of view. You know, when someone starts to look at the application and sees the metadata about this application, he sees that, oh, so this customization was built by Zetamind, right? So it also has a place to allocate versions, right? When you start to go into the production environment, you will notice that the way you have been updating on Sandbox is not the way you'll be updating on the live environment. Live environment will now have to do with version. So the idea is that the way Microsoft has already made their thought process is that um, they believe that whatever application you want to push out to a live environment, it must have gone into a level of testing. That means you have tested all the process, you have vetted it, and it is fine to go for a production, for a launch in the production environment. So when you now push a specific version of it, and you now notice that there are some errors that you need to correct, after correcting them, there will be a compulsory need for you to upgrade the version because it's already understand that this is version 1. Probably version 2 is just an advancement of or an enhancement of the previous version, right? So you can give a brief description of what this application does, right? You can write your narrative, short description, whatever. So sometime around this course, we'll be looking at dependencies, what it does actually. So so let me just touch it a little bit so that by that time you would have been prepared to actually know what it does. So dependencies, let's say you have built payment uh, voucher as a standalone application. You have built document workflow. Document workflow being that, okay, this is responsible for approval process or approval sequence, right? Um, let me okay. Okay. Now you are not building another new app that would be needing payment voucher, document approval. So inside those projects, this is where dependency comes in place because I can say this application depend on those two processes that are currently not on this system to function well, right? So I can always put in the dependencies. When we get to the module whereby we start using this, I'll explain that in details. So also, with the PDF provided or for the Moodle one, all of these attributes has been explained. So the other very important ones that we will need throughout this course is this ID range. Now, ID range. ID range. Now you can
Please,
see
please,
that
can you give me a minute, please? Please, 1 minute, please.
forward, please.
Please, I want to answer Mr. Tunji. Sorry, please. 1 minute. I don't want to miss anything, please.
Your time is almost up. Oh.
You should be aware about that too.
Ah.
All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. All right, David.
Okay. So you might be asking that where are we starting from? Actually, Microsoft gives us ability to use from 50,000 to now 99,999, right? So they gave us this range for development purpose. There are also some different IDs for app production when you want to start building for Microsoft. You want your application to be in app source. App source in Microsoft, that means any companies can go to the app source to install your application. So there's also a different range. So I think that one start from 70 million to 74 million, or it's range start from, yeah, I think about that, yeah. So what we are actually interested in for our own walkthrough is from 50K to 99,000, right? So there are some other attributes that are very important that I have not mentioned and that are not currently here at the moment. I would also talk about that when the need is actually there, so that you see the practical reasons why it is there or is being provided. Or like just having all of this abstract information on your head and then I'm assuming that you already know it. All right, so these are what VS Code is going to take all together to know how to actually push out this application at the end of the day. So what they gave us here now is from, I think from version, was he is it 13? Is it, they introduced what we call namespace. So namespace is also a new feature. It's still very new in Microsoft. So we'd explain what namespace does, the importance of namespace in an application as at now, and a use case scenario, where to use it, how to use it. So at the end of the day, I you would see that uh okay. So at the end of the day, I would need to actually download Symbol. So for me to download Symbol, the same key, Control Shift P, then I can search for download Symbol, right? So this will work for me here because I'm currently using it for another operation, but you would always want to do this. So this pop-up will come up, and if the pop-up doesn't come up, that means you have probably logged into an environment, right? So, or let's say you haven't done that, but this pop-up didn't come up. So you can always use this icon here, this bell icon, and check the list of it. You should be able to see this. So what this is saying is that it wants me to log in so that it can authenticate me and confirm that this is the specific tenant I want to be working with. Once I do this one time, it keeps reference of the environment IDs and the credentials. So it will just tell me to open, and then I can paste the link. While I clicked on that button, I also copied it, automatically copied this key. So if I say next, it's going to ask me to choose the environment I actually want to log in with. So you can see, so I will need to select one of those environments that I want to work with. So when I choose this, so I am able to log in. So at the end of the day, with these credentials that I have actually linked to my Business Central, my Visual Studio Code, we use that to download the appropriate AL packages for this development. All right, so when it is done, I would get a status of download completed or whatever status is going to bring. So that we that for the setting up of the environment and actually understanding all of the functionalities that is within that sequence, right? So if we have any questions, please put up your questions now, and then let's call it a day for today.
Any questions?
No, I think you've covered at least for now for the introduction part. So there's no question. Chimere, do you have any?
Sorry, please. I don't know if it's possible to ask a question out of the scope of what we did today.
Okay. Okay. If you're asking out of the scope, go on. Let me go on. Go on. Go on.
Okay, I built a report that I was supposed to use on a page. The page and the action bar. Once you click print, it prints a report. So I want to know how I can link a custom report to that print.
Okay, yeah, I would think let's not fast forward to that time. Let's just we'll probably handle that in in the next class. I
All
would
right,
advise
thank
we
you.
don't fast forward to that. All right. Thank you very much. Any other
Thank you.
question?
No, no, no question.
All right. So we can call it a day. Then we hope to meet you guys